things that kind of come up here and there, whether it be situation of the game, play call, protection, route running, catching, throwing. There's a lot that comes into play with that, and it's certainly an area we need to get better at. And we're continuing to put in the time to continue to trust our process with how we game plan for these things, how we scheme them, how we rep them, teach them, all that. But it's definitely something we need to improve on.
Do you focus on doing what you do better, or do you try to get creative and come up with different ways to get it done?
There's always a combination of those sort of factors, of doing what we do, or things we know really well, inside and out, but also things that put our guys in a position to do what they do well, but also attack a defense and how they want to play the certain situation, because every defense is different. So every game plan changes a little bit, and there's sort of a give and take of just do what we do, attack what they do, put everybody in the best position. So kind of a case by case.
Press, when you face a team like Buffalo that scores a ton of points, and you know you'll have to score a ton of points to beat them, does that affect how you game plan for them?
It doesn't necessarily affect the way you game plan. Really, when you play teams like that, or how every single game, the game changes as it goes. So we always go in with the intent we're trying to score every single drive. And then even like last week, all of a sudden you're in a 17-point lead. It changes the way you want to play the game. So you adjust the game plan within the game based on the situation you're in. So a team like Buffalo or these high-scoring offenses that you play, when it's high-scoring, you know you have to match. You may have to be aggressive in the way you play. You may have to play a ball control style game just to keep them at bay for a little bit, give your defense a little break. So again, it always kind of changes. Obviously, you know you're going into a game with the plan. You're going to need to score maybe more than you play other teams that tend to run the ball however they play offense.
You're coming against the Bills' defense. There's a great defensive line, great depth there. How do you game plan for a defensive line that can rotate and keep guys coming in and being fresh all game long? Yeah,
they do a great job of subbing, pretty much kind of hockey subbing their defensive line, where it's the whole two unit comes in, the one unit gets a break. They're rolling guys in and out. They've got a lot of really good players, be it defensive tackle or defensive end. It's certainly something you try to plan against. Maybe you have times where you want to change the tempo just to keep a certain group on the field or keep a certain group off the field. So there's certainly different ways you want to attack them when teams are doing something like that as you go.
Coach, it sounds like Von Miller's coming out to London. How do you prepare for a guy that we've not got any tape on for the last 12 months when we know how special a player he is?
Well, either fortunately or unfortunately, we have about 10 years of tape on him. So we know what type of player he's capable of being. So he's one of those guys that you have to be aware of. He's a game wrecker. And we would imagine, if he's using bits and pieces, it's probably going to be on critical situations where he gets a chance to rush the passer. But if he's playing every single down, that's something you got to be aware of as well. So he's somebody that will pay the respect he's earned.
Press, what's the value of Walker Little over these last couple of years for you guys, from right tackle to left tackle to potentially left guard when that time comes?
Yeah, he's kind of a security blanket for us just within the staff, of knowing he can align in multiple spots. Being able to play left tackle and right tackle is not as easy as people think. You're right hand dominant on the right side, left hand on the left side. So that's a little harder than I think people would realize. And then being able to move inside where there's less space, everything's constricted, everything happens faster. A guy that can handle that and do that at a high level is really invaluable for us.
Do you guys feel like you might be on the verge with some of maybe some hidden stuff? I think it's three and outs combined in the last 3 games. You had a 13-play drive at the end of that one on Sunday. I think you're 60% on the other side of the field in enemy territory. Are those some of the things that when you're meeting, you're like, hey, a few more plays and we're where we want to be?
All those numbers I had no clue about. So those are great. I appreciate those when they sound good. Yeah, it feels like we're starting to string things together. We really just want to be efficient. We want to be efficient and explosive. That's kind of one of our commandments that we talk about a lot as an offense. We've started to gain some traction in being efficient. We're still working to be explosive at certain times or when we need to be. Like I mentioned earlier, I think the dynamics of the game last week changed pretty quickly, where all of a sudden you're up 17, a team that was, in all honesty, was struggling to throw the ball at a certain time. So the game plan changes as you get into it, or the way you play the game changes, and I thought our guys did a great job of that. And ultimately it came down to the other day on Sunday, our players made plays. I mean, you think of the first touchdown was Calvin and Trevor were hot. Trevor makes the guy miss. Calvin breaks a route off. We score a touchdown. Christian had some big third down conversions. Evan made some big plays on some keepers. Even Calvin drawing a DPI late in the game. It wasn't a game that we were great running the ball, but a lot of things came off the run in terms of the movement, some of the play passes we hit earlier. It's a full system. So you look at it and say we didn't run the ball great, but a lot of the things that came off the run game were big for us.
Press, my question was about the run. You got some traction against Houston, it felt like. And then last week, it seemed like short yardage, the whole thing.
Yeah.
Just had trouble. Do you feel like you're getting close there to where you want to be, or how would you assess it overall?
We think so. And again, the dynamics of the game changed where it didn't seem to benefit us to be super aggressive and trying to get to the perimeter and risking negative yardage plays. Some of it was, let's keep going straight ahead. We'll pop some of these eventually, which we did or we didn't. We probably didn't in that game. But again, some movements came off. We get a 30-yard gain to Evan rolling off there on a run cell where their defense is committed to it. We go into the game knowing that's a really good front. You have a lot of calls that you don't get to just because, again, when you're sitting on a 17-point lead and the dynamics of the game change, you play the game a little differently than you planned to when it was 0-0 and you had 4 quarters ahead of you. So there are things we need to continue to get better at those and move forward.
Coach, we saw Blake Hance come in a lot of the game last week in kind of these jumbo packages. Why was that important for the way you wanted to play, and it's almost the role he's carved out on this team?
Yeah, and Blake's similar to Walker, and a guy that we have a lot of trust in, can do a lot of different things. So whether it be playing guard, which he played through training camp, playing tackle, which he's kind of done for us, and then even being available to play tight end there in certain situations. And when you play Atlanta and a guy, Calais Campbell, sitting there on the edge, and you kind of want to match some brute force with some brute force right there, maybe a little better than some of our tight ends give us. So we felt like Blake gave us an advantage in that particular matchup. Again, it's a case-by-case, game-by-game basis of when we'll utilize things like that, but we felt like that would give us an advantage or a better matchup than we would have had with our tight ends doing the same thing.
Thanks, Russ.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Russ.
Appreciate it.
Who, like Josh Allen, who is so big and so powerful that if you get into 3rd down and 2, you put yourself at a distinct disadvantage. Does it put more focus on keeping him in 2nd and long and 3rd and long to try to take away the run game from him?
Well, that's the plan all the time, is keep teams at our advantage in 3rd and longs and 2nd and longs. But you're right, a big guy like that really great runner, it's going to be tough. So we just go out there and try to understand our game plan and focus on keeping them in those situations.
There are a lot of quarterbacks in this league who can run, and we've seen plenty of them. But this guy in particular, it's the combination of size and speed. What's your tackling plan? Up front, what's your mentality with a guy like that? How do you account for him?
Really, the skill set that he has, he's a great runner, he's a great thrower, so you have to get bodies around him. He's a big guy that it's going to be hard for one guy to bring him down, so our plan is to get multiple guys around him and try to get him on the ground.
Mike, I get the turnovers come in bunches, but since you've gotten here consistently among the top teams in the league in forcing turnovers, is that your identity, and how do you continue to sort of, emphasize that and be successful at it?
I think, I don't know if it's our identity, but we want it to be that. We focus on that a bunch. That's a topic in, almost every meeting. We have to take the ball away from the offense and give it back to our offense. So that's one of the things that we like to do, and we've had a little bit of success here lately of getting them, so hopefully they'll continue to come.
Mike, Josh obviously has a couple of huge games. Josh Allen, your Josh Allen, this year. Did you see a lot of that brewing last year as well? And maybe he didn't get to the sack numbers he's at right now in this first month, but almost there. And almost, is this your expectation for him to deliver games like that?
Well, really, Josh he's had a bunch of pressures last year, and he went home and, focused on really just finishing. And as a staff and as a defense, we talked about finishing, and he's been able to finish early on in the season, and we look for that to continue. Josh put the work in the offseason. He's a talented player. He came back, and it's paying off for him and us.
How good is your secondary playing? It seems like a different guy's making a play, safeties and corners, just about every week.
I think when you look at it, it all goes together, the pass rush and the secondary. And when the pass rush is doing well, the secondary is doing well. When the secondary is doing well, the pass rush is doing well. So it really goes together. And right now, we're working pretty good together.
Just going back to what was being asked before about keeping them in kind of third and long situations, the one game we've seen Josh Allen struggle this season was when he did have a lot of pressure on him. How are your guys finding the balance this week between finishing like you talked about, but also knowing that if you go hard and he makes you miss, then suddenly that turns into a big play situation?
That's a good question. Really, you just have to go out there and execute your game plan. We understand we don't want to fly by the quarterback. We want to stay in his face and then just try to get him on the ground with multiple guys. We want to be aggressive and try to attack him, but then also be smart with how we rush him. So there's a plan, and we'll go out there and see if we execute on Sunday.
We saw that your Josh Allen was limited in practice yesterday. How serious is that, and how much of it will you have to adjust if he's not 100%?
Really, we really allow the media, the training staff to answer that question. He was out there, he was limited, but we let them handle those questions.
Just back to the secondary for a moment. How much is what they're doing, the familiarity with what you want them to do in year two of this system?
I think anytime you're in a system for a year, then a second year, you improve just because you've heard it over and over again, and we're preaching the same message. Now they're able to, apply it better. You got to hit me back with that question again. Yeah, it is. You can go back to just early on in the season, they're able to pass things off. Now, we did have a couple of bad plays against Texas where we reverted back. But again, it's a work in progress. The guys are continuing to get better, and we'll continue to progress like that way.
Just in general for this week, being out here for the full week instead of having to fly, and it's your second year of kind of doing these London games, has this felt like a normal game week to a normal prep week, or have you still had to treat it differently considering those extra stresses of not being at home?
No, whichever week it was. Last week we treated it like a normal week, and this week we're doing the same thing. Football players are, they're creatures of habit. And you get into a habit, you want to do the same thing on Wednesday you did the last Wednesday. And we try to let their habits take over. And we're trying to keep our schedule the same. And that's why we go at it. We're here to play the Bills, and our schedule will be the same if we play 3 or 4 more games here.
How much has Cisco advanced in your scheme, and specifically what is he doing better than he did last year?
I think really his understanding of the overall scheme is better, and he's catching the ball. He had opportunities last year, and he didn't come up with those catches. Now he's coming down with them, and, he's a talented player. He has all the skill. He has a bunch of range back there, and you like the way he's attacking the ball, and he'll continue to do that. All right. Thank you.